When it comes to social justice, a recurring theme that I always talk about is connecting social movements. We're stronger in numbers, and I think that's something that our governments actually do better than us. Is that governments learn from each other and they work together, and that's how they're able to maintain control as well. And so what we need to do better as activists is to connect our movements and to connect our struggles and to see all of the things that unite us rather than divide us. So whether we're struggling, for the right to privacy and the right to free expression and so on in Europe and the United States, or whether we're struggling for, human rights generally in the Middle East, all of that is in some ways connected. And so finding that common ground, building communities is extremely important, because that's also what helps us carry on. So when it comes to the movement in Bahrain, I think, I spoke about the importance of connecting social movements. And I don't think necessarily that the movement in Bahrain is directly linked with other movements, in the sense that the movement in Bahrain is not directly influenced by other movements, but there definitely is that sense of need for solidarity, and for that kind of connection where people actually learn from each other's tools and their tactics. And I think that's one of the most important components of connecting social movements. So for example, one of the things that I found really interesting was that when the protests were happening in Ferguson, one of the things that we did is myself and a colleague who is an activist in Palestine, we started tweeting at people in Ferguson about how to deal with tear gas. So like different tactics of when you're tear gassed, what you should do, how do you deal with tear gas and so on, because usually people's first reaction is to put water on their face, which is the worst thing you can do. And it was really interesting because our tweets were actually read by people in Ferguson, and it got picked up by the New York Times and so on. And so that kind of connecting social movements, I think, is extremely important, because you learn from each other and you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel when other people already know how to deal with certain issues. So I think there's a lot for the movement in Bahrain to learn from other movements in Latin America, in other places in the Middle East, and so on.